Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
You're watching the Tesla Q4 2024 earnings call in depth. And boy, is there a lot to talk about today.
I was going into this earnings call going like, oh, it's such a boring earnings call, blah, blah, blah. Because I was listening to the analysts, and the analysts were talking about, what do the delivery numbers look like? And then Elon started the call off. He is excited.
This is the most excited I've ever heard him.
And we've been covering Tesla earnings calls since 2017. So, yeah, I think this is a really big deal.
Yeah, so much stuff you're going to want to hear about next on In Depth. All right, so let's just get through some of the highlights. But honestly, this is one of the first times where I really don't care about the nitty gritty of like Q4 sales,
The
and all that kind of
financials
stuff,
and the
right?
accounting, you don't care about the
Not
numbers?
really, because we're talking about the stuff that's coming up, and Elon let us in on so many things, and those are the things I really want to get to. But, you know, if we look at $7.1 billion of GAAP operating income in 2024, $1.6 billion in Q4. Operating cash flow of $14.9 billion in 2024, with $4.8 billion coming in Q4. Just $7.5 billion increase in their cash and investments in 2024. So they're up to $36.6 billion in the bank. Not bad.
Not bad.
I mean, just to give you an idea, I know there's been inflation and everything, but I would say you can build a gigafactory for like $5 billion. So that's enough to build like 7 gigafactories. Although I guess now we should be talking about building out superclusters.
It's true, because they might not need to be building gigafactories. And we're definitely going to be getting into that more.
And then in terms of operations, increased AI training and compute by over 400% in 2024. Now, I know for a lot of us, since most companies don't even talk about AI training, this doesn't seem meaningful, especially since it's like, well, yeah, but how much money did that make you? We're getting into a time now where traditional auto analysts especially are not going to know what to do with these kinds of numbers, because cars don't traditionally have AI in them. But as we're going to learn on this earnings call, and as we talk about all the time with Tesla, full self-driving is AI. And so this is the kind of thing we need to be following. And it's just incredible to hear this number. Over 3 billion miles driven cumulatively on FSD supervised as of January. 3 billion.
And they've completed the construction of Megafactory Shanghai. Now, you might be saying, didn't they already build Gigafactory Shanghai? No, Megafactory Shanghai. This is where they build the mega packs for China.
Hey, Jesse, do you know what your car smells like?
Like my car.
Nose blindness is a real thing, dude, especially in small spaces. So make sure your car smells as good as it looks. I think you should get Drift for your Cybertruck.
What's Drift?
Drift creates air care products for your car and your home.
Okay, how does it work?
Well, Drift makes these beautiful car fresheners in wood, stone, and metal, and then they have a variety of great scents. So they use premium oil blends free of harmful chemicals that traditional fragrance companies use. Drift scents are vegan, cruelty-free, and pet-friendly.
Is it expensive?
No, Drift car products range in price from $9 to $15.
Oh, and I see here I can save even more by buying refills and packs.
I put Winter Zen in the Cybertruck, perfect for these snowy winter days.
The only problem is, I know I'm going to forget to order more at some point, and I'll go back to being nose blind.
Well, what's cool about Drift is that you can get it as a subscription, so you can keep your Cybertruck smelling great all the time.
I guess my truck does deserve a cool scent.
You can swap scents, you can skip or cancel your subscription at any time, and Drift is delivered right to your door with free shipping.
Get your car smelling great with Drift today. Make sure to use our coupon code, or scan the QR code to get 55% off your first month at drift.co.
Yeah, that's 55% off. Makes a great gift, by the way.
Thank you, Drift, for partnering with us on this video. Check out their link below.
So as with all earnings calls from Tesla, it's great to start off by hearing from Elon, because then you kind of get the summary of what's happening. Plus, you get to hear what mood he's in. And like we talked about at the top of the show, I think Elon is just in one of the best moods I've ever heard him in. He was so excited to be sharing stuff with us. You know, he did remind us of all the kind of important stuff. Annualized rate of building these cars at $2 million per year. Model Y is the best-selling vehicle of any kind on Earth in 2024. And I think because the legacy media does not say this, when people hear it, maybe like at work or something, they go, no, you mean like electric car, right? No, it's the best-selling car on Earth. And that's a really big deal.
Yeah, no, that was fun. That was fun.
Okay, well, how about this? Elon's talking about maximizing volumes, right? So he wants to get to this point where he's 10xing autonomy. He wants to get to epic 2026, a ridiculous, he said, these are his words, ridiculous 2027 and 2028. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah, no, that was good too. That was good too. It's not what I was the most excited about.
Okay. What are you excited about?
Elon mentioned that full self-driving.
Oh, I know what you're excited about. Elon talked about that he sees a path for Tesla to be worth several times more than the next top 5 companies combined. And he said it's an achievable path due to autonomous vehicles and robots.
That is exciting.
Well, can we just find out what that number is? I haven't had the time to do the math on it.
Okay. Not including Tesla. So
Right.
if you have to look at the top 6 companies in the world, because Tesla is currently, I believe, number 5 in terms of market value.
Worth like 1.2 trillion.
Yes. If you take the top 5,
Okay.
not including Tesla,
Okay.
and you add them together,
Okay.
their market cap is $16.8 trillion.
And then Elon said they are going to be worth several times that.
Now, if Tesla gets to $16.8 trillion, that is over a 10x from today.
Right.
In terms of market value.
But again, he said several times.
He said several times. So that's going to be 30x is what he says. 30x from its current value. Meaning that if you put $10,000 into Tesla today, if what he says is true, it would be worth
$250,000.
$200,000 to $300,000.
Right.
That's what he said. That's what he was not implying. That's what he said.
Right. An achievable path.
That's not even the most exciting thing that I think I heard at
Oh, wait. So
the
that's not
earnings
what
call.
you're referring to?
No.
What were you referring to?
Full self-driving robotaxi network unsupervised in Austin in June.
Right. Yes. That was super exciting. I almost fell off my seat taking the notes for that. And then Pierre Ferragu from New Street Research, normally an analyst that I got to be honest, I don't enjoy hearing his questions from.
I think last earnings call, he was okay.
I think he bought a Tesla. I think he's gotten better now because he understands what he's talking about.
He definitely did. He was the only analyst who asked a even halfway decent question.
Oh, you didn't like Adam Jonas's question from Morgan Stanley?
About LiDAR?
So Elon, you've said in the past about LiDAR, that for AVs at least, that LiDAR is a crutch, a fool's errand. I think you even told me once, even if it was free, you'd say you wouldn't use it. You still feel that way?
Yes.
What a freaking idiot that guy is. Oh my good. What? Why would you waste a question? You are the guy that they chose to ask Elon a question, and you ask him, so do you still think LiDAR is dumb?
Yeah, no, so Pierre asked this question, which I think shows that he knows what he's talking about. He's been driving around in FSD 13, and he said to Elon, hey, when you do open up this full self-driving robotaxi network in Austin in June, can I drive my car there and put it on the network? Which is a really good question.
Because that's something that I want to do. And Elon said, no.
Correct. He said that they're going to start with their own fleet, and then they're going to probably move on to other cities with their own fleet before they start opening it up to people like us. That would happen, I think it sounds like 2026 would be the first time that we could then be putting our Teslas onto the network.
Which is very exciting. And I just want to talk about that. I honestly,
That's only 5 months away.
Yes, we're talking about June.
And here's what I want to say is I think that if you're Elon and you're coming up with June, that's not like that the rest of the company's never heard it before. I've got to imagine that if you're using 5 months from now, that you already have a team working on it.
So let's talk about what that day looks like, because I think that we've talked about a certain scenario, and Elon has talked about this as well. Elon has once talked about a scenario where they turn on the network in one day, and all the cars that are currently just Teslas right now could be robotaxis. What he is saying now is rolling it back a little bit.
He said he wants to dip his toe in the water and make sure that they keep putting, then another toe, then their foot, then their leg.
And so I'm guessing that this is going to be a small to medium-sized number of robotaxis.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a Waymo scale.
So probably around
in the couple hundred.
in the hundreds is range.
Yeah.
And that may sound extremely disappointing, but here's where I think Tesla is at right now. Anyone who drives a Tesla with full self-driving, with hardware version 4, and we're going to get into that in a minute, with hardware version 4, people who try it, they get it. Yep. They go, okay, this is actually working. Pierre Ferragu, he said it was working so well for him that he's like, I wish that I could just read my email while the car is driving me around.
Well, that was a really good follow-up question from him. He asked basically, when will I be able to do that?
And Elon said soon, which is a good indication
I think he said several months.
And what is in several months is when they're doing the robotaxi thing. So they're going to have this small number of fully autonomous robotaxis that are going to be doing what Waymo is doing currently. Why? I think it's to get regulators on board. I think that right now the legacy media has crowned Waymo, for whatever reason, as the king. It makes sense. You can order a Waymo, and it'll autonomously pick you up, and it'll autonomously drive you around downtown San Francisco. It's very exciting. It's very cool. It's visually it works. And you don't have to buy a special Waymo car and buy the special software package like you do with a Tesla, which means that regulators could try it if they wanted to. So if Tesla can implement the same thing, basically, working in Austin, Texas, and then probably San Francisco, and then several other cities, they're going to take the legacy media's own story, which is that, well, Waymo is the best. When they're competing head to head, and Tesla's probably going to start to pull out ahead, where's the story go? How do you continue to say that Waymo is better? And how are you possibly going to stop Tesla from opening this up nationwide, anywhere and everywhere?
And I think Austin is key here because Austin has what? A lot of Tesla employees. So I think what's going to happen in June is that Elon's going to open it up just for Tesla employees first, because that way they can safely test it without the mass public using it at first, work out all the kinks, move on to another city. Same thing there. When they go to San Francisco or Northern California, they'll do Tesla employees first. And then I think they'll slowly open it up, kind of like Waymo did, to people on a waiting list to use it. And I think that's so smart. And if you're thinking, oh God, well, then it's going to be 5 years before any of us get to use it, according to Elon, next year, it'll be opened up, he said, across the entire country.
Because if Tesla is close right now with version 13, and Elon has said that version 14 is going to be another step change improvement, then we're looking at a pretty good driving car, because my car can pretty much drive me all over the place.
I think version 15 would be the first time that the cars will be probably 3 to 5 times safer than humans. I don't know if that's safe enough for Tesla, so maybe version 16 would have to be the one. But I think when he gets to somewhere in that range of 5 to 10 times safer than humans, it's kind of a no-brainer.
We can get into the philosophy of like, how much safer than a human do you actually have to get into? And trolley problems aside, I think that once you get in the car and it feels good the whole time and you don't have to pay attention, I think the moment people can watch a movie while they're going somewhere and there's nobody else in the car, I think that is a entire game changer.
Yeah, I think psychologically it is too, because right now we keep thinking in terms of affordable cars. And he did talk about the first half of this year, a more affordable Tesla will come out. But I think we're going to stop thinking that way about me owning one when I can just get in one.
I don't want to own a car. I know that you want to own a car. Okay, I know. I know. Do you like insuring your car? Do you like having to park your car? Do you like having to
I like maintaining it.
You love maintaining it. Maybe you like washing your car. I don't, but maybe you do. Do you like changing the tires on the car? Do you like...
I like paying excise tax.
Oh, excise tax.
Yeah.
That's a real fun one. We get that. Oh, I forgot that I bought a nice car here's the bill from the government for that. Do you like coming back and finding your car dinged or scratched?
One of my favorites is when you buy the car and you have to pay sales tax on it.
Oh, do you like it when you get in your car and it makes a weird noise and then it doesn't make that weird noise again and you have to just kind of go, I guess that was fine? Or you're driving and you hear some kind of weird noise and then maybe it keeps doing it, maybe it doesn't.
I love trying to figure out how to get the mice out of my car.
What if that's not your problem? Okay, and I know, where am I going to keep my bowling shoes? I don't know. Maybe there's going to be a way for you to summon any object from your home anywhere in the world at a very affordable price. Okay, we're getting too far out afield here. What I'm saying is, when you can actually get in a car and watch a movie, that is the moment that I think most people are going to go, yep, I want this.
Well, can I go to the other point that Pierre brought up, which is, we're all getting to the point in version 13 right now where we don't even really want to pay attention to the road anymore. So we all just now are thinking, hey, can I be doing something else? And we can't. When it gets to the point, which Elon seems to be pointing at middle of this year, where I think what's going to be called level 3, which is you don't have to pay attention until the car tells you have to pay attention, which means that you can then focus on something else unless the car goes like, in 5 minutes, I'll need your help. When that happens, there'll be a shift and people will see the value of FSD. Tesla will raise the price of FSD. And then I want to tie in the other thing that Elon talked about, which was a question about hardware 3. A lot of people out there, you've got a hardware 3 car, are out there going, okay, well, is hardware 3 ever going to drive as good as hardware 4? And what did Elon say?
He said, if we're being honest, hardware 3 cars are never going to be able to do it. So, he said, we are going to have to upgrade those people who bought full self-driving in hardware 3 cars.
So that's you, for instance.
That's me. I bought full self-driving. It was on sale. I got it at a steal. But I bought full self-driving, which means that Tesla is going to have to update the computer in my car. Now, Elon said that it would be painful, and that's because a bunch of people have done it. Now, he said that not a lot of people had done it, but not a lot in the world of Tesla is still lots and lots of people.
But the big story here, I think, for a lot of people who haven't bought it but have a hardware 3 car is if you don't buy it now,
your car is not going to be able to do full self-driving.
So you may want to seriously consider, and again, we're not financial analysts or anything like that, but you may want to consider buying it soon. First of all, because it's the cheapest it's ever been practically. And also because if you don't, then that hardware 3 car will never be able to be put on a robotaxi network.
The big question is going to come with subscriptions. Right now, I believe it's $99 a month if you want full self-driving in a Model 3 or Model Y that has hardware 3. Are you going to need to pay to upgrade it if you want it fully autonomous?
Oh yeah, no, I think he's basically saying if you haven't bought it by some certain date, you're going to be out of luck. I think this was your hint.
And I don't think he was supposed to say that during the earnings call.
No.
So buy it right now if that's what you were thinking. That's all I can say. I think that would be the safest option. Either that or they're going to make some arbitrary deadline, but they'd have to give you your money back.
Well, and the thing is, everyone's going to get upset and be like, but you said. No, he said if you bought full self-driving. If you didn't buy full self-driving, then you never expected your car to fully self-drive. So I think that's his way out. So if you buy it, at least then he'll either have to give you a new car that has hardware 4 in it, or he's going to have to upgrade your car.
And they may simply up the price to the point where it would cover their costs. I mean, they may just say, okay, well, now it's $25,000 more expensive because that's what it'll cost to bring it in and fix it. I have no idea what it costs.
Elon was so excited because the revenues that are going to come from 2 things, Optimus and from robotaxis, is so amazingly high. I mean, we just talked about what he thought the company's going to be worth. That when he got to talking about something more realistic, when he talked about Tesla Energy, and he said, that could get to like revenues of like $1 billion a month. He was like, but that's kind of meaningless at that point because he's going to be making so much money from the other robots. So it's not going to matter. He even said that spending $500 billion on a supercluster to train would be worth it. So, I mean, the amount of money we're talking about that's going to be made by Tesla soon, he can upgrade the cars or buy you a new one or whatever. That's not really going to be a problem.
So yeah, full self-driving, Austin, June.
Huge.
Next year, it sounds like people are going to be able to put their cars on the network, which allows Tesla to essentially put Uber and Lyft out of business.
And if you haven't watched our Disruptive Investing, where we show you basically how much money you could make putting your Tesla on the network, you got to watch that right now because you might be thinking, oh, it's a few bucks a month or something, right?
We weren't even including basically cargo delivery.
Yeah, I mean,
that Elon mentioned.
Elon talked about the fact that there's many hours during the day, maybe at 3 a.m, where most people aren't driving around, but there's goods being delivered to restaurants and stuff.
That's pretty exciting, especially maybe being able to just summon your items. But we have barely talked about Optimus.
Yeah, I mean, Elon's super excited about that. He talked about that there's 1,000 times more uses for Optimus than a car. That basically a car is the easy thing to program because it does one job, moves you around the planet. Optimus not only has to autonomously get around, it has to then do things like paint and
pick
cook
things up with its hand
and help you with medical things.
Cars typically don't wash dishes, so that's why Elon said that it's 1,000 times more useful, 1,000 times more complicated. Now he was saying that Optimus will need 10 times what the cars need in terms of training,
right?
Because obviously, if you learn to dig a hole with a shovel, that's a little bit different than doing ballet or brain surgery.
Right. And he said that basically this year he probably is going to make several thousand Optimuses like we talked about. They will all go to work in Tesla factories doing fairly simple jobs, but he said dangerous ones, things that people don't really want to do, repetitive ones. And then next year, hopefully they will 10x that build. So instead of 1,000 a month, it'll be 10,000 a month. And that's when things are going to get super exciting because it sounds like that's when they're going to potentially start selling them to companies. And the interesting thing here is that he was talking about the price and he said, when we get to about $1 million a year in production, kind of like with a car, the cost to Tesla, so not the price you pay, but the cost to make them will be about $20,000. So then you would think, oh, so just add on 10% margins and that's what we pay. But he said it'll depend on the demand. And I got to imagine, at least in the beginning when they're producing fairly low quantities, that the demand for these things, because the cost of labor will be like $2 an hour, the demand for these things are going to probably drive the price up I would imagine, to at least $100,000 a robot.
And then he said that it wouldn't take many years before they're making 100 million Optimuses a year.
And if you're thinking, well, where's the demand going to be for that? If Elon's right and that everyone's going to want at least one, then you're talking demand of billions of robots. Because again, it's something we can't really fathom. But once you have a robot that can do things for you, and then your neighbors see that and your friends see that, they're all going to want one.
Right. And if you're like, oh, no, I don't need a robot, that's fine. I'll just come to your house and take your dishwasher out.
Right.
You don't need a dishwasher. You can do that by hand. Oh, you don't want me to take your dishwasher away from you? Yeah, that's what it's going to be like when there's robots. You're going to be like, I can't live without a robot. That's an appliance. That's something that everybody needs in their house with a refrigerator and a washing machine.
Yeah, he said 2025 is going to be a pivotal year for Tesla. We're going to look back and think on this as the biggest, most important time for Tesla. He said bigger than even when they came up with their first cars. I think this is just a transformative moment for the company that most people have not even begun to fathom. It was really funny at one point he's talking about AI, which again, when you first think of Tesla, the first thing that comes to your mind is like a red Model S, not AI. But he said they're the number one AI company in the world in real world AI. And he said, if I was to think of a second place company, I would need a telescope to even see it. And I think he's right. Because there are companies working on AI, but they don't have the real world miles that he has, and they don't have cars that are able to do what his cars can do right now.
And that's where I don't know why all these big money firms keep assigning auto analysts to Tesla. They should stop doing that. This would be like if the Ticonderoga Pencil Company suddenly started making fighter jets and they still had the pencil analyst going to the earnings calls. And
so how much graphite are you using?
So I don't know anything about the fighter jets. It says here, $800 million per jet. But I was, is there graphite in those?
Stupid that they have analysts. I mean, thank goodness for Peter Farragut. I was never expecting that he was going to be the analyst who was going to rise to the level of asking a simple, decent question to Tesla compared to all the other analysts. Thank God for say.com.
I think it's because so many of the other analysts don't drive Teslas. And if they do, they don't have FSD. Because once you do, I mean, Elon said this throughout the earnings call. If you haven't driven FSD, you have no idea what we're talking about.
And then he's like, and when was the last time you drove?
Yes, he said the difference between driving it, say, a year ago and now is the difference between knowing a person when they're a baby and knowing a person when they're an adult. It's like, yes, they have the same name, but other than that, they're a world apart.
I think it's a really good analogy. And again, this is why the say.com questions are so good.
Yes.
Because so many of them come from retail investors. So let's get into some of those.
Are there any discussions with other auto companies about licensing FSD? And Elon kind of laughed and said, yes, there's been a significant interest from a number of companies, but the best thing you can do, other car companies, is take one of our cars apart, see how the thermal needs of our computer work, see where the cameras are placed, and we're only going to entertain high volume offers. So it sounds like, don't come to us with like, yeah, we'd like 12 cars.
We'd like to start with a pilot program.
Yeah, he said, we're not going to burden our engineering team talking to your engineering team until, first of all, FSD is in all U.S. cities. So I think this will be, he won't even talk to you till probably next year. And he basically said, unless your car company has FSD, you're dead. He actually said that.
It was so hard. If this was a gangster rap track, like the internet would be blowing up about it because it was a absolutely mic drop moment. And did you hear about it? Did you hear about it when he said that? Did you hear about it on the Legacy Press? I don't think you did.
I think that Jim Farley, Mary Barra, they better actually have an emergency meeting with the company tonight and say, okay, we need to decide if because if you're not one of the first ones in on this with Elon, your cars will be worthless. So I think they have to immediately call up Tesla, say we're in. What's our minimum? 1 million cars a year? Great, we're in. And please help us starting as soon as you can. If they don't do that today, whatever company's not working with Tesla is dead.
But what it really sounded like to me was that he had some interest from other auto companies, but that they were, they wanted to know what would it look like.
Let's do a pilot program.
I think that's what it was.
They're going to do it the old-fashioned auto company way, which is like, let's have a pilot program, and let's our engineers talk to your engineers, and Tesla's not going to do that.
I don't even want to know what that meeting would be like.
Hi, I'm from Detroit. Hey. Hi, can you hear me? Hi, we're on It's called Zoom, I guess. Am I zoomed in?
Sorry I'm late for the call.
Oh, wow.
I had to update my Zoom.
I can hear. Where are you guys? What's the weather like out there? Wow.
Did I just hear a robot
Are
walking behind
you're
you?
in Texas, you say? Whoa, what is everything bigger over there, eh? And the Tesla engineers are just going to be like, what do you want?
Yeah. Jeffrey asked a good one. Is Optimus now mostly design locked for 2025 production? And Elon kind of had to laugh again because he said, we're moving so fast on the redesign for this that it's like redesigning the train, the tracks, and the station all at the same time. So
As the train is moving.
as the train's moving, no, they're not design locked at all. He did go into the fact that the team is fantastic and that it's the age-old problem of, building a prototype of a robot is great, but that's so easy compared to the mass production of it. And so I think what he's doing is he's pointing to a lot of these other robot companies that might have a pretty cool looking robot, but he's saying, like, even if you do, if you can't mass produce it cheaply, you're just not going to be competitive. Big question here saying, when will Tesla start selling Optimus and the price? So we know that basically it sounds like 2026 is when the first companies might be able to buy them. Sounds like 2027 we're going to get it into 100,000 a month if Elon's right about production. So that might be the chance for us little people to get one. And that's when he talked about their cost getting down to about $20,000, but prices will be set by market demand. So again, I think it's going to start around $100,000. But what do I know? Comment down below. Kevin asked, what is the status on the mass production of the Tesla Semi and how do you project it will affect revenue at scale? And here's where Elon had really rosy, like if they were just making Semi and that's all they did, this would sound amazing. He said, we think when we get to scale, we're going to be in the $1 billion a month revenue world, which is amazing. But he said that's only going to be like 1% of what Optimus brings in. So, and a big part here, which I don't think many people think about, it is a truck, but it will be an autonomous truck. And what Elon talked about is right now there's a shortage of truck drivers in America. So as we go forward, less and less people want to do this job. To get people to do that job, you got to pay them more, which means your goods cost more. But if we start putting Tesla semis on the road at the rate of, I think he's talking 50,000 a year, that's not bad because I think we're talking about 800,000 Class 8 trucks in the US.
Yep.
So we can get up to that amount pretty fast. If you're putting autonomous trucks on the road, your goods are going to get cheaper.
It's such a huge thing, and nobody talks about this because when Tesla rolled out with the Tesla Semi back in the day, the most autonomy that they talked about was convoying, where you had of course, you're going to have a truck driver. He's going to be the head of the column. He's going to be driving the truck, or it'll be, semi-autonomous. And then there'll be a couple of autonomous semis behind him. And that'll be the convoy. Yeah, you're not going to have that first truck driver, and all these trucks are going to be going in completely different directions because that's how freight works.
Yep.
And that is going to revolutionize at least this country. It's going to make things extraordinarily cheap because for the first time, you're going to be able to move a hell of a lot of things using only electricity very, very cheaply with nobody driving them.
And I just want to talk about a human driver. The needs of a human driver, one of the big ones is sleep. So the laws are very clear about how many hours you can drive, which is usually 8 to 10 a day. Autonomous cars don't get sleepy, so they can drive up to 24 hours a day, which means your goods get there faster, which means, again, they're cheaper.
Right. It's essentially like if you could replace every truck on the road with an autonomous one, you wouldn't need half of the trucks on the road.
Or 3 times as many.
The price of freight would drop by a significant margin.
Exactly.
And that is a very exciting thing, which, Tesla also just so happens to be doing that we haven't, Zach and I haven't talked about for months.
But you know what? You can't even make electric trucks, according to Bill Gates. Good question from Robert here. This is the question that kind of led to Elon answering truthfully about Hardware 3. Is it expected that Tesla will need to upgrade Hardware 3 vehicles? And if so, what is the timeline and expected impact to Tesla's CapEx? I think he meant something else there. Elon's honest. And I think for the longest time, we've all been asking that question if we have a Hardware 3 car. Okay, is software going to get there? And it sounds like they're going to probably give up on it.
Yeah, I think that when Hardware 4 rolled out, Tesla talked a good game about having Hardware 3 continue to do full self-driving.
I'm glad he was honest finally.
I am too.
Because this gives you the chance to decide what you want to do. Buy it, and basically you're all set then because they'll either upgrade you or I think probably have to buy you a new car. Or, no, I'm not going to do that and I'll worry about buying a car later.
And he said that they are going to upgrade people who bought full self-driving.
Right.
So they're going to make everything work out. It may be unpleasant for a few months there, but I would guess probably before you could start putting your car on the network, they're going to allow it. Am I going to hold myself to that? No.
Matthias asks, has Tesla given up on ramping their solar roof product? And Basically, the answer is that they're simplifying the product, so they're decreasing the SKU count. That means they're trying to make the product simpler, and that they're basically going to go to a nationwide network of roof installers, which is what they're doing now. Instead of Tesla doing the installs, they're basically going to make this roof product just like an asphalt roof product, where you as the roofer or you as the homeowner can decide what you're going to install on your roof. And he said it's going to stay a premium product. So it doesn't sound like they're able to or want to get it to be a cheap product right now. He says it doesn't make sense to just rip off your roof unless it needs to be replaced or unless it's a new house.
What I think is interesting here is that the market has kind of caught up to Tesla when it comes to solar roof. Solar roof, I still think, is probably going to be one of the best looking solar roof options. And by that, I mean there are other companies that sell nail-on solar shingle packages. And so Tesla doesn't really need to do that necessarily because the market has essentially started to fill that space, and Tesla has lots of other things to focus on.
Yeah, what typically happens with Tesla roof is you haven't really thought about your roof in a while, right? So when you do, you go, oh, I've got 15 or 20 more years of life in my roof. Financially, when you run the numbers, it doesn't make sense to take a perfectly good roof off.
Right.
And that's, I think, is the problem, is most of us aren't in the market really for a new roof yet.
You can't sell a roof. You can't go like, oh, I'm going to go buy a used roof. No. You can buy a used car, and that's why Tesla works so well for, basically selling you a new car, because you can go sell your old car. You don't have to wait until that car is absolutely dead before you buy a new one, because you can get whatever value is left in the car by selling it.
And the other thing is he's competing with solar panels.
Exactly.
So unless you really need that look or more, you just put solar panels on your roof.
And that's where most of the customer base for solar is going to be right now.
There's a question from Blake. It's kind of technical. What technical breakthroughs will define version 14 of FSD, given that 13 is photon to control already? And Ashok, who's the head of AI, was talking about that basically they're going to have a bigger model size, bigger context length, more memory, and more minutes of context. I thought the minutes of context was interesting. When you say there's a problem in FSD now, you can tell them like, that didn't take the left like I thought it would. I think there's a lot of training that goes into that because they have to like dial it back, rewind, see what the problem was. And so they just haven't bothered doing that until now.
And I think that this kind of gets into the thing that Zach and I have been noticing with Full Self-Driving. The biggest critique that Zach and I usually have is its lack of game sense. Usually, Full Self-Driving doesn't think ahead too much when it comes to lane changes, so it'll be in the right lane when there's a whole bunch of traffic coming in off of an on-ramp, or you're going to be in the left lane when you kind of need to be over 2 lanes to take the exit, or just sort of things when you're on local roads where it just is like, think ahead a little bit, and you're going to avoid a lot of these situations. Right. Like, why are you slamming on your brakes? Why didn't you just slow down when you saw the taillights turn on? And I think that may be due to a lack of context, where if you're suddenly spawned into the world and you're given 2 seconds to react to something, you're going to react completely differently as if you had, say 15 or 25 seconds.
Right, because think about a human and how many years of experience you have before you even are asked to do anything. Mm-hmm. You come out of the womb, day 1, you don't know how to even move your arms, and day 2, you can do this, and day 3, you can do this. It's amazing what the cars can already do, but they're going to get better. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple questions at the end, but I think what's really cool about the questions at the end is a lot of times you get Elon either getting a little frustrated or talking about things that go off topic. One thing I found really interesting here was he talked about Europe and the fact that it's really hard to get anything done regulatory wise in Europe. But he let this out. I don't know if he meant to. And it sounds like it's possible that the EU is going to hear from Tesla in May. They're going to present their case for allowing FSD, just regular FSD, on the roads in EU. And it'll be then up to the EU to decide starting in May. I have no idea what EU is thinking. You guys in the EU might. This is going to be the first time that we'll know anything.
But Elon is basically making fun of Europe for having to take months and months and months to hear something that is happening right now.
Right. And then if things go well and they approve it in May, let's keep our fingers crossed, then he said they would go back and reapply for unsupervised FSD maybe next year. So for all those people I've heard in the comments are like, it'll never happen in Europe. Well, that's up to you guys in Europe. Contact your regulators, your officials, and say to them, get into an FSD car.
I think that the thing with Europe is they're not going to move until unsupervised opens in the United States.
That's fine. They can be behind us if they want to.
Yeah, they'll be behind if they want to, but then they do want to. For some reason, they do want to. Once we have unsupervised full self-driving in the United States, Europe is going to
Yes, they will.
probably be economically forced to do
And
it.
morally forced. You can't take
That's true.
something that kills 1 million people a year and not offer something safer to your people. Now, can you explain what he was talking about with China? Because he said they're having some kind of problem in China, but it's not to do with the government necessarily. Well, I guess it is.
So it has to do with full self-driving. Basically, China will not allow Tesla to send recorded clips of, normally Teslas are constantly sending clips off to the mothership to be trained with. China will not allow those clips to be sent to the United States. And
And the United States won't allow them to train in China. So what are they doing to solve it?
this was pretty interesting, and I'm surprised that he mentioned it. They are taking publicly available clips of Chinese roads that are on the internet right now. So think dash cams, think people standing on the street with a cell phone. They are taking those clips, putting them into the training data, creating virtual Chinese streets with city signs and stuff like that to try and create some training data, since they're not allowed to basically do any training data with the cars that they have in China.
What I think is interesting here is there's no incentive for the U.S. government to change its rule, right? Because why let China get FSD before us? But there is an incentive for China to hear this and go, you know what, let's just let him use this training data if we somehow make it safe in some way. I mean,
They're not really incentivized because they have many of their own players who want to do full self-driving.
True.
So this would essentially lock Tesla out and allow domestic Chinese automakers.
or it'll force Tesla to open a training cluster in China, but then somehow let like China control it.
I don't know what they're going to do. They may. We're getting into geopolitics, and I think when you get into geopolitics, normally business leaders don't have the most amount of authority. Elon might, if there was ever a auto CEO besides maybe Henry Ford, having some sway with the president of a country. There is a chance. There is a chance.
Oh, one cool thing that came out talking to Pierre Ferragu is safety. So right now, the latest Q4 safety data just came out. One crash for every 5.9 million miles driven in FSD. That is 8.5 times safer than if you manually drive the car. And that's insane, I think, because I think the last time they did this was 7.9 times safer.
And I think that it is amazing. I want to talk about the caveat with that. When you have the car doing FSD, I do think that FSD is getting better. I know it's getting better. You can't convince me it's not. But you are sitting there and you are forced to supervise it, because if you stop paying attention, the car beeps at you and is going to kick you out and then will suspend you from full self-driving. And people like full self-driving, so they tend to pay attention, at least to the extent where they're probably going to catch major safety errors where the car is going to crash. This means that the car has two drivers. And when the car has two drivers, the human can catch the mistakes that FSD makes. The only other part of this, though, is that because you're not allowed to use electronic devices while you're in full self-driving, it means that there's a good chance that you'll take the car out of full self-driving in order to use your phone to text somebody, and you'll drive the car manually to do it, which is what Pierre Ferragu was talking about with Elon.
Yeah, that it's a weird world that we live in now. I don't even know what you call that you don't want to get yelled at by the car, so you take it out of FSD to do a thing that's going to be more dangerous.
Right. We all know that texting and driving is dangerous. In a perfect world, the car would fully drive itself. Right now, it won't allow you to use your phone, and because you don't want to get kicked off of FSD, people, and I think that Tesla has realized this and probably has a metric for it, people will take the car out of full self-driving, and Elon said, drive the car with their knees while they're texting, and then they'll put it back in full self-driving. So you're going from one of the most safest forms of travel to the least safe form of travel, and then back to, it's crazy.
Elon talks about this all the time, incentives.
Yes. I mean, the car essentially goes from having two drivers to zero drivers back to two drivers again. It's like, couldn't we just have one?
The good news is it sounds like this will be over in a few months. They'll have this solved, and so you won't be taking your car out.
This is going to be crazy.
It is gonna be
You're going to be
crazy.
able to be on your phone while the car drives you around.
Yeah, I mean, that's level 3. That's really cool. And that leaves us with the last analyst of the night, which was Dan Levy at Barclays. And he kind of asked a political question, like, what is the right U.S. policy for EVs now that you're part of the Trump administration? Are you going to be lobbying for, no EV incentives? And Elon said, sustainable transportation is inevitable. It doesn't matter. It's like you couldn't have stopped the steam engine. You couldn't have stopped the internal combustion engine when there were horses. You're not going to be able to stop electric cars. He basically said range was what was holding EVs back, but that's a solved problem. And so he kind of skirted the question by saying it doesn't matter. And I think what he's implying is if Trump takes away EV incentives, it won't matter. Will it slow it down a bit? Maybe, but it won't end up mattering.
It won't matter because people won't need to buy EVs in order
Exactly.
to ride in EVs.
Exactly.
That's what they're going to do.
Right.
And Elon knows this. He knows that it's going to solve the problem. I mean, you want to replace every car with an EV. You can either make an EV to replace every car, or you could make one EV to replace 10 cars.
Exactly.
Which is what Tesla is going to do.
Such an exciting call. Do I say this at every one of these? I'm just so pumped for Tesla, and I'm so excited for in June. I'm so excited for what's going to be happening all throughout the US, and next year, all of us who have Teslas might be able to put them on the network. And I know that your number one question is, am I going to let people in my car? Well, it's a financial question, isn't it? So head on over to Disruptive Investing, where we kind of answer that question of how much money can you make?
And you're going to be pretty surprised about the answer. I think you will.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, on Now You Know and on This In Depth. Don't forget that every Tuesday comes Tesla Time News. We've been doing it for 439 weeks in a row. So we'll see you there next week. And thank you to Drift for partnering with us on this video.
Get your car smelling great with Drift today. Make sure to use our coupon code, or scan the QR code to get 55% off your first month at drift.co.